And welcome along to Transfer Talk. Yoane Wissa makes his feelings clear to Brentford as he seeks a move away, but Newcastle are yet to make an offer. Could we see developments in the coming days with Eberechi's future as Palace line up a replacement, and it could be Leicester's Bilal El Khannouss? Rasmus Hojlund wasn't part of Manchester United's plans this weekend, and it looks like he won't be for the season ahead. We'll look at where he could go, with clubs in Italy interested. And West Ham looks set to move on Edson Alvarez. What impact could that have on potential incomings? Very good afternoon to you. Very good afternoon to Michael Bridge as well. He's with us for the next hour. Let's start with the ongoing situation around Yoane Wissa, shall we? He remains angry that a transfer to Newcastle from Brentford has still not materialised. He believes the club is being difficult, and the move Wissa made yesterday in deleting all traces of Brentford from his social media was a representation of his current stance. Newcastle have been expected to move again for Wissa, despite Brentford's club record signing of Dango Ouattara giving no guarantees he would be sold, but it has not come yet. Crucially, there has been no new contact between Newcastle and Brentford so far this week, and there is no new bid on the table as things stand. But, Michael, Yoane Wissa's taken quite a strong move here, hasn't he? Why would he do that? Why would he delete all of association with Brentford from his social media? Is that going to help the situation?
Probably not. I think we know that he's very unhappy already. So it's going to upset, I think, the supporters even more. You know, he's had so many wonderful years at Brentford Football Club. And yes, it's a very different-looking Brentford Football Club at the moment. But we've got a player here who wants to join another football club. That football club have a value for the player, but Brentford also have a value for the player. Brentford want big money, and currently Newcastle aren't prepared to pay it. So, as it stands, it's currently looking unlikely that he is going to get his move, which makes it rather difficult. Does he retrieve those pictures and put them back on social media? We'll wait and see, but it's not ideal.
No, it's not. And like Isak, is it getting to the point where there's no way back for him at Brentford?
If he stays at the football club after deadline day, I don't see how Brentford are in a position just to... Like, it's gone are the days like in the 90s where they say, let the player rot in the reserves, let him rot in the B team. Those days are gone. So he would have to be integrated somehow. So, yeah, I think there's going to be more twists and turns to this, that's for sure.
Yeah. Would he only take such drastic action, deleting all of his Brentford association from his socials, if he had a clear indication that Newcastle would come back in with another bid?
Well, look, as we know, as it stands, Newcastle aren't prepared to pay that at the moment. But, look, we know that with the dominoes of other players as well, some players having to wait, having to bide their time, certain situations, Eberechi, Eze, for example, with Crystal Palace, but you look at the way he's handling himself at the moment. I think just the word, as I've said at the start, I just think it's getting a little bit unsavoury at the moment.
Yeah. All right, well, earlier on Good Morning Transfers, we were joined by Rob Earnshaw. This was his view on the situation.
My first thought was, come on, this is childish. Deleting all the Instagram stuff, pictures, his history with the club, it's just childish. Let's face it. I tell you what's happened. There's been a conversation. Brentford have made it hard for him, maybe asking too much or what he feels is too much of a price tag. And he's got very frustrated with that. And he's gone in one afternoon and just lost his mind for a little bit for a couple of hours. And that's what's happened probably. But I tell you, I will say this, though. This guy, Wissa, I think he's brilliant.
Yeah.
I think he's an excellent player. Any team would be, I think, brilliant to have him. It would be, I think he would add so much. He would add goals. And this guy scored over 20 goals last season. So Wissa is a great player, excellent player. I just think he's had a moment of frustration. He's gone to his social media and lost it for a few seconds.
Right, interesting situation, isn't it? Anything happens, of course, we will let you know right here on Sky Sports News with Johan Wissa. It's a Tuesday, though, so it's time to speak to our South American football expert, Tim Vickery, live from Rio. In fact, Tim, the last time I spoke to you, you were complaining it was a bit cold for you there. I hope it's warmed up a bit.
Yeah, a little bit. I'll have you know, I haven't deleted any references to you from my social media pages. They're all still there.
Good, good. And I'll try not to offend you in the next 5 minutes or so you delete them. Good to see you as ever, Tim. Let's start with Claudio Echeverri, shall we, from Manchester City. Looks like he could be on his way out. Borussia Dortmund are interested. Are you surprised, given some of the form he's shown, particularly at the Club World Cup?
Yeah, more flabbergasted than surprised, actually, given, number one, City perhaps unwisely letting Cole Palmer and Julian Alvarez go, so becoming a little light perhaps in that area. Number two, Echeverri is in, Garnacho is out. Now, this is significant because one of the big question marks that Argentina have building for next year's World Cup is how on earth do you replace Di Maria? And Garnacho seemed the heir apparent as the man to run the wings. Hasn't quite happened for him. So these are important moments. So he really needs to get out there playing to kickstart his claim to get back in that Argentina squad in a run-up to the World Cup.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see whether Chelsea do come in with a proper offer for Garnacho in the next few days. We are hearing that they do want to sign him, but it's a question, I think, of also other people leaving. How about the keeper, John Victor, who I don't think too many people in terms of Premier League fans will know too much about. He was linked with a move to West Ham a few weeks ago. It didn't happen, but do you think he could still end up in the Premier League, and would he be a good addition?
Well, there were stories saying that West Ham had left him in the lurch. This, as I understand it, is not true. It was his decision in the end. A little bit like, I don't know if you remember, but a year ago, this happened with West Ham and a big Brazilian defender called Fabrício Bruno, who played for Brazil at Wembley. He'd agreed terms with his club, Flamengo, to join West Ham. And then the player decided he wasn't getting paid enough and he weighed it up and didn't move. And it seems that a similar thing happened to John. Now, there was a question mark against would he be able to go back and play for Botafogo? Botafogo had brought in Neto, the goalkeeper from Bournemouth, to replace him. Last Thursday night, they did bring him back. I was in the stadium when they played a big game in the Champions League over here, the Copa Libertadores, and John was excellent, really, really excellent. There's a little bit, when you saw the debut yesterday for Leeds for Lucas Perry, John's predecessor in the Botafogo goal. And John's quite similar, quite a similar goalkeeper. And given the events at Old Trafford at the weekend, there's been speculation that maybe United could look to bring him in. I would think it's probably unlikely after he's just rejected a move to England. But obviously, then as we've seen from everything that's happened in this window, even without Champions League football, United is still a very, very powerful draw. So if there is something concrete on the table for this player, maybe Man United will turn his head more than West Ham are able to.
Do you think he'd be good enough for Man United? Would he be an upgrade on what they've got?
He's a terrific goalkeeper. He really is. The comparison, I think, with Lucas Perry is interesting because Lucas spent a year not getting a game, but he spent a year with Crystal Palace a few years ago. And that obviously helps enormously because you get to learn the language a little bit. And defending is a collective endeavour. Keepers must be able to communicate with their defence. And that might be an initial problem for John. But in terms of his goalkeeping ability, he's tall, he's athletic, he's lithe. Once he's bedded in, I think he would be a terrific goalkeeper for any Premier League side.
All right, interesting stuff. Let's move on to Andre Santos. He signed for Chelsea a couple of years ago, but he's set to leave.
Well, depends what Chelsea want to do with him because they've got him on a long-term contract. Central midfielder. Had a storming season last year for, one of Chelsea's sister clubs there, Strasbourg. Got in the Brazil squad, Carlo Ancelotti's first squad, came off the bench in Ancelotti's first game. So this is a big season for him. You know, Brazil with problems there in central midfield. Andre Santos appearing as perhaps a solution, but he's got that problem at Chelsea, hasn't he? With them stockpiling so many players, he's got to get ahead of either Moses Caicedo, who had an extraordinary season, or a World Cup winner in Enzo Fernandez, just to get a game. So there's been interest from West Ham, who looks like they're looking to move the Mexican Alvarez out, creating a hole there in that central midfield area. Andre Santos would be fabulous for filling that hole. But what do Chelsea want to do? Are Chelsea open to a move, even a loan move? And I think this is almost like a test case for the problems of keeping such a big squad happy. You know, you've stockpiled so many players, but there's only 11 of them that can be on the starting lineup.
Tim, a couple of weeks ago, I asked my producer, Chris, can I squeeze in a question on Christian Romero potentially becoming the new Spurs captain? He did become the Spurs captain, and he's now got a new contract. Christian Romero, I thought he might have gone this summer, Tim, potentially to Atletico Madrid, but no, a long-term contract at Spurs and now the captain. I want to hear what you think of
that. He's got a huge year ahead, hasn't he? Not only Champions League football for Tottenham, but something which probably goes even deeper in his psyche. Argentina's bid to retain their crown in just under a year's time. What Argentina will be trying to do next year has never, ever been done, to retain the World Cup in a different continent. And it's basically the same defensive unit as the last World Cup, where it nearly collapsed game after game after game. We don't know whether Argentina will be able to replace Otamendi, the former Man City defender, who's obviously now very much at the veteran stage. So Romero is going to have an absolutely vital task coordinating that defensive line for Argentina. And I think he's come to the decision that what he really needs now is stability. So hence the fact that he's signed on for Tottenham. Terrific news for Tottenham, because probably the best part of that side is that world-class combination of centre-backs. So great news for Tottenham and a bit of stability for him as he builds towards the World Cup.
Tim, I want to just chuck one more in while we've got you, if that's okay.
Because chuck it in. Chuck
great.
Away.
It's going in. It's going in. We got some news just recently that Sunderland are possibly in for John Lukumi, the Colombian defender from Bologna. Do you know much about Lukumi, what we can expect, and have I pronounced his name correctly?
You have, yes, Lukumi, yes. He's the little surprise here, I think he's a terrific player. The little surprise is that they've just signed Omar Alderete, the Paraguayan defender who's come across from Spain. Because Lukumi is a little bit similar. He's a left-sided centre-back, but I think he's Premier League ready. He's a huge physical specimen, Lukumi. He's quite quick along the ground. He's regular first choice in that Colombia defensive line. And maybe this means they can push out Alderete to left back, where he's happy as well, and play Lukumi, who's a little bit bigger, even a little bit more physical. You can play him at centre back. You might remember the giant Colombian Yerry Mina at Everton. Yeah. Lukumi is, I think, a better footballer. He's not quite as physically imposing, although he's a beast. He's not quite as physically imposing as Yerry Mina, who's like a building with feet. You know, he's a giant. But Lukumi has pace along the ground. He's got football now, and it really does show that Sunderland are determined to strengthen their defensive lineup. That terrific start against West Ham. They know there's going to be harder days ahead, and they will be preparing for defending against top opposition if they bring in this player from Bologna.
Great. Always a pleasure, Tim. Thanks very much.
Pleasure is mine. Speak to you next week.
Right, OK, we mentioned John Victor there, a Brazilian goalkeeper who's in demand. We're going to talk about another Brazilian goalkeeper now. Galatasaray have made an offer for the Porto goalkeeper Diogo Costa. The Brazilian goalkeeper that we're going to talk about, though, is Ederson, because what I want to ask you, Michael, is how potential move for Diogo Costa for Galatasaray could affect the uncertainty around Ederson at Manchester City.
Well, our colleagues in Germany, Ederson, interestingly, but a deal with Manchester City doesn't seem close at all. So Costa is still at the top of Galatasaray's list. Now, City and Pep Guardiola have made it clear that Ederson will not leave the club this summer. Now, he missed the opening game against Wolves, apparently due to illness. Now, look, we keep mentioning World Cup years. Very important these players are settled. But talk about settled. Ederson said he was very settled at the Club World Cup for Manchester City. But Gianluigi Donnarumma has been linked with Manchester City. And let's not forget, they've re-signed James Trafford. Yeah. What's James Trafford thinking right now? So he's kept a clean sheet on Saturday. So really interesting one in terms of the goalkeeping situation at Manchester City.
Right, so City in turn have been linked with Gianluigi Donnarumma, as we've touched on there. He is up for grabs. We are hearing for something in the region of 35 to 43 million pounds, something like that. Champions League winning goalkeeper. What about Man United? Andre Onana did not play, was left out of the squad for the first game of the season. Altay Bayındır played, and it was his mistake that effectively was the difference in the game. The official stance from Man United is that, no, we're happy with our goalkeeping department. Might that change and they go in for Donnarumma?
I think if there was interest in Andre Onana, that would change. But at the moment, there hasn't been any interest. What we should really say as well is that Onana's missed all of pre-season with an injury, which probably suggested why he missed the game against Arsenal on Sunday. Now, anyone who watched the post-match press conference with the written journalists after that match against Arsenal for Manchester United, Ruben Amorim was very, very strong in his defence with Altay Bayındır. One of the journalists mentioned Tom Heaton, and you see straight away Ruben Amorim just looking up, and he looked quite angry at the suggestion that Heaton should overtake Bayındır. Amorim mentions that Bayındır was very unlucky against Spurs in the Carabao Cup last season, that it was a foul in one of his mistakes last season, that he was fantastic against Arsenal in the FA Cup last season. However, I think what's clear is Donnarumma, the availability seems to have come out of nowhere. He's a world-class goalkeeper. Does he improve Manchester United? I believe he does. I think he enhances most football clubs. Ederson's been unbelievable for Manchester City, but when a goalkeeper of this calibre comes along, you know most clubs will be looking, and I think that's what's happening at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be a surprise if no Premier League club really seriously considered it. Yeah. Donnarumma. Right, up next, we are live to Crystal Palace's training ground, where a potential replacement for Eberechi may have surfaced. We'll tell you who it is after the break. Welcome back. There are less than 2 weeks left in the window. Will Crystal Palace lose both Eberechi and Marc Guehi? Well, we can cross live to the club's training ground now and speak to our reporter, Gary Cottrell. Hello again, Gary. You're on Eze watch. We saw you try and grab him a couple of times, didn't you, at Stamford Bridge on the weekend? Can we expect him to be part of the team that plays on Thursday, do you think, for Crystal Palace?
Well, Oliver Glasner, post-match to the interviewers and to the news conference, said that as far as he was concerned, he would be a part of the preparations for that game at Selhurst Park on Thursday night and a part of the playing squad for that game. Listen, we won't be seeing him or anyone down here today because they're on a day off. They did a warm down yesterday after that draw at Stamford Bridge. Off today. They'll be back here tomorrow to train from 11:30 tomorrow morning. So I guess then is when we'll see Eze and Guehi, come to that, out there training in preparation for that game. And I think we will see Eze out there unless something happens very quickly in the meantime, and I don't think anything is that imminent because he isn't the kind of player to go on strike, to not do what he's required to do by the club, either at the training ground or at the stadium or travelling to away games. He's very much a loyal player. He has great affection and pride wearing the Crystal Palace shirt, and Glasner expects him very much to carry on like that, even around all this speculation. His social media, for example, there's nothing like we've seen with Wissa over the last 24 hours, removing his image and removing any reference to Brentford. if you look on the Instagram of Eze, just hours after that game at Chelsea, he scored, of course, but was disallowed because of the problems with the wall. He posted a picture of him playing for Crystal Palace against Chelsea. So still very much pride in being a professional here at Crystal Palace. And we expect him to be here training as normal tomorrow morning.
I'm sure Palace want to keep him if they can, but are they preparing for his potential departure by looking at a possible replacement?
Of course, two ways they will let Eze go. One is that they get the money that they require for him. Of course, that clause in his contract, that release clause, which was 68 million if you include add-ons, that's now gone. That's disappeared from the contract late last week. But Steve Parish will still be wanting around that kind of money for this player, for this prized asset, 60, 65, 70 million. And those negotiations with Daniel Levy, which we understand are going on, will have that kind of figure in mind. And of course, the other caveat to letting him go this late in the transfer window is finding a replacement for him. And one name that's emerged among others is Bilal El Khannouss, Leicester City, 21-year-old, very similar kind of player. Can play attacking midfield, can also play wide. Obviously, still a long way behind in terms of development and ability to be a star in the Premier League. A long way behind Eze, but Leicester City thought to be willing to let him go for around about 30 million. So that would leave Crystal Palace in big profit if they can get that kind of money for him, because they need to get some money into the club. So they can fund building the squad in other areas. So that's one of the names that's been mentioned potentially coming in to replace Eze. But Crystal Palace will be having their tentacles up, and they'll be having fields all around football in England, in Europe and beyond to try and find a replacement for Eze. So they are in a position, if the money is right, to let him go. But that's one name that's certainly emerged in the last few hours.
The Eze decision's a big one, but so is the Marc Guehi one, isn't it? Because as Steve Parish outlined, they do not want to let him go for free if they can avoid it, but that could very easily happen in the summer.
Well, there is that potential, of course, and they knew that, though, didn't they, with Guehi last summer when Newcastle, we all thought all summer long, it was the deal that was going to be done. Newcastle were determined, were insistent, came in with offer after offer after offer, almost meeting Crystal Palace's requirement in terms of a fee, but not quite doing it. And in the end, Steve Parish, Crystal Palace, stuck to their word, and they said, unless you pay the price that we want, you're not getting him. And he stayed and he performed and he helped Crystal Palace to 2 trophies, let's not forget, and a good season as well in the Premier League. Obviously, it's a different situation now because he's got just a year left on his contract. There seems to be no movement in terms of renewing that contract, but that is the other potential, isn't it, that Liverpool, the front runners who are after him, still not offering the kind of money Crystal Palace want, even with a year left on his contract. And if Liverpool don't, I don't think Steve Parish will let him go, and the player will stay and either be free next summer, or he loves Palace. We know that. He knows what Palace have done for his career. Negotiate a new deal and still be available for sale next summer rather than going for free. And sometimes behind the scenes, player and club can come to that kind of agreement. Give us another year, give us a bit of an extension on your contract, and we'll sell you for sure to anybody who meets our value next summer. So it would seem that Crystal Palace not at the moment ready to sell either player as they prepare for their first encounter, not in the European competition that they wanted and they feel they deserve, but still very much a competition they believe that they can win.
Feels like a very important couple of weeks for Palace. Thanks very much, Gary. Right. We'll talk about Spurs in a minute, but let's just look at it from a Palace point of view, and I'm talking about Eze here. If he does leave, where does that leave Palace?
Well, if Eze does leave, it means to me, my understanding is that Palace will have secured a replacement. Like many of these transfer situations, these clubs, selling clubs, want to get their replacement sorted out. And as Gary's mentioned there, Bilal El Khannouss is the player there's interest in. Now, he featured for 45 minutes against Leicester, against Preston on Saturday, taken off by Martí Cifuentes. Wasn't really impressed with him during the game. Obviously, a disappointing result for Leicester. Another player they remain interested in is Christoph Selos at Club Brugge. Now, they have a massive game in Glasgow tonight against Rangers in the Champions League playoff round. So it'll be interesting to see if he plays. But look, Crystal Palace recruited ever so well over the last few years. Many people watched Eze when he played for QPR. It was Crystal Palace who bit the bullet. Many people watched Marc Guehi at Chelsea and other loan spells. It was Crystal Palace who bit the bullet. Crystal Palace have done ever so well over the last few years in terms of recruitment. They get on very well with the hierarchy and Steve Parish. Dougie Freeman, of course, is no longer there. But also, I've got to mention Oliver Glasner. He's an ultra-ambitious manager. Even when they won the Community Shield, this is Crystal Palace we're talking about. Sort of shrugging it, yeah, great. Next one, let's go. And I know Palace fans, it's been devastating for them not being in the Europa League. Just go and give the Conference League a crack. And I'm sure that'll be the message from Glasner. But what Glasner wants now is players through the door. Because they probably haven't got enough players for Europe and the league. So it's all well and good maybe Eze leaving. They will have to bring players through the door.
OK. Should we look at it from a Spurs point of view then with Eze?
Before I move on, actually, I know there's that shot of Marc Guehi with Glasner. But that's all fine, I'm told.
OK.
He went to have a post-match drugs test.
OK, so that's why he just went down the tunnel then?
Yes.
OK, all right, there you go. Good intel. Let's get back to Eze then and his potential move to Tottenham. Is the timing almost perfect now for what Tottenham Hotspur need and for what Eze needs to take his career to the next stage? Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, look, it was a devastating injury for James Maddison, for him and Spurs. You know, James Maddison's had a great couple of years for Spurs, but it's a heartbreaking injury for him. So their plans for a number 10 have been accelerated. Of course, the Morgan Gibbs-White, Spurs thought that was going to happen, then didn't. We all know what happened there, so I'm not going to go into that again. But Eze is someone who Spurs have looked at for some time. He's at a great age now. He's an England international. So, and look, if Eze was to join, he would fit straight in, you know. So, and the targets for Spurs this summer to replace Son on the left-hand side. There was interest in Savinho from Manchester City. That's why I put Wilson Odegaard there, but he's still young. I'd imagine Spurs could look for some another player on that left-hand side. Eze there, of course. Don't Palace fans getting angry, so we've got the old asterisk there. It's not done. And then that's a big one for Spurs as well, with Christian Romero signing a new contract. So, and Khannouss as well, being a very strong signing as well. So it's been a good couple of weeks for Thomas Frank.
Just quickly, if he does come in, what does that mean for the future of James Maddison?
I think for James Maddison, he's just got to concentrate on his injury. You know, it's going to take some time. So it's going to take. We don't know how long he'll be out, but he's got the full backing of the club. Look, another player we haven't mentioned is Dejan Kulusevski. He's a quality player, and he's been a key player for Spurs over the years. He's not going to be back till around late October, November, even maybe early December time. So, and I go back to it again. This isn't just the league we're talking about. They're in the Champions League as well. You need a big squad full of quality.
Yeah. Thank you, Bridgie. All right, still to come. Plenty on Transfer Talk. Will Rasmus Hojlund and Jadon Sancho actually leave Manchester United? We'll discuss that and a lot more in just a moment. Stay with us. This is Transfer Talk, and this is your transfer update. Yoane Wissa remains angry that a transfer to Newcastle from Brentford has not materialised. He's deleted all traces of his current club from his social media. Crystal Palace have approached Leicester City to discuss a possible deal for forward Bilal El Khannouss as they look for a replacement for Eberechi Eze, who is nearing a move to Spurs. Napoli have identified Man United striker Rasmus Hojlund as a potential target to cover for the injured Romelu Lukaku. That's according to Sky in Italy. Roma are not giving up on a potential deal for Man United forward Jadon Sancho. Roma have also reached an agreement with Aston Villa to sign Leon Bailey on loan. Fenerbahce are close to agreeing a loan deal with West Ham for Edson Alvarez. The talks have been for a loan that includes an option to buy. Gianluigi Donnarumma is valued at between £34.5 million and £43.1 million, with 1 year left on his Paris Saint-Germain contract. Sunderland have made an offer to Bologna for this man, the defender John Lukumi. Wolves have signed right-back Jackson Chachua from Serie A side Hellas Verona on a 5-year deal. The fee is £10.8 million. Wrexham are close to agreeing a deal for Manchester City centre-back Callum Doyle. He spent last season on loan at Norwich. It's understood a deal worth up to £8 million is being discussed by the clubs. And Birmingham City are interested in signing the former Arsenal and Liverpool midfielder Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. Don't forget, you can keep across all the latest information as it happens on our dedicated Transfer Centre blog. You just scan the QR code that is on your screen right there, and it'll take you to where you need to be. Right, let's move on to Manchester United, and several clubs in Italy are interested in signing Rasmus Hojlund. AC Milan sporting director Iglitare said that Hojlund is a good option as they push to sign a striker in this window. But, Michael Bridge, they could face some competition from another team in their league.
Yes, Serie A champions Napoli have identified Rasmus Hojlund as a potential striker to cover for the injured Romelu Lukaku. That's according to our colleagues in Italy. Now, I can just imagine Antonio Conte, remembering him here. I'm sure he's been knocking on the boardroom at Napoli to get a replacement for Romelu Lukaku. Look, I think this is probably good news for Manchester United. I think it's very clear that Rasmus Hojlund doesn't have a future under Ruben Amorim. It was interesting to see whether he did have a future, because in pre-season he played pretty well on their tour of the United States, and he came out in a couple of post-match interviews and said he wanted to stay at the club. Amorim said he was happy with him. However, the match against Fiorentina, the penultimate pre-season friendly, didn't feature. Mason Mount was a false nine. The warning signs were there. And then against Arsenal on Sunday, no Rasmus Hojlund, no goals for Manchester United. A new look Manchester United forward line, of course, of Mbeumo and Cunha, Sesko on the bench. But it does look like Rasmus Hojlund's future lies elsewhere. And as I say, it's probably good news for Man United that there could be a potential bidding war going on now between AC Milan and Napoli.
OK, we'll keep our eyes on that. Meanwhile, Roma are not giving up on a potential deal for Man United forward Jadon Sancho. That's according to Sky in Italy. Roma are keen on him, Michael, but what's holding things up Sancho's end?
He doesn't seem overly keen on them as it stands at the moment. We understand he wants to explore other options. Now, we've been told it's got nothing to do with personal terms. The bid was worth 20 million for Sancho. Now, look, a lot of what we hear from Jadon Sancho, a lot of it over the past has been in wages. It's very clear. We talked about the doubt about Hojlund's future. It's very clear that Jadon Sancho's future lies away from Old Trafford. I think in an ideal world, they wanted him to stay at Chelsea. That didn't materialise. I mean, I don't know about you, Matt, but I think the option of Roma is a very attractive one. So whether he's got anything else, we know Besiktas were keen, and we know the Besiktas fans messaged him constantly on his social media, please.
They have 5 million comments on a post or something like that.
Please join us. So we'll just wait and see what materialises over there. But that one is clear. He has absolutely no future at Manchester United. But personally, I thought Roma would have been a good option for him. So we wait and see.
Yeah. All right, what about West Ham then? Because I'm sure, particularly after the weekend, West Ham fans will want to see some signings. But are there some developments today on a potential outgoing in midfield?
Yeah, there have been developments. Yeah, Fenerbahce close to agreeing a loan deal with West Ham for Ederson Alvarez. Now, talks have been for a loan, which includes an option to buy. Now, once there's a full agreement between the clubs, it will be down to the midfielder to decide on the move. Now, last time I spoke to a contact at West Ham a few weeks ago, they said to me that midfield is the area they need to strengthen. Now, you'd imagine they'd hope that Ederson Alvarez comes to an agreement, because they do need some players in. Graham Potter really does want to change that West Ham United squad.
Yeah, when you look at West Ham and that squad, and we'll talk more in the next part about other sides that need to strengthen too, but are they one of the sides that really have to strengthen from where they are?
Yeah, I think so. The West Ham fan, you look at the fans, they all travelled in their thousands at Sunderland away, And that's a really... I mean, look, it's a tough opening game, don't get me wrong, but it's a really tough defeat. You've got the wonderful Jarrod Bowen. I mean, Lucas Füllkrug, he's had a pretty good pre-season. Paquetá's obviously now cleared of his the charges. So, but then obviously there's murmurings about maybe he wants a fresh start. Karen Brady, I think she spoke on the radio on Sunday saying that she wants Paquetá to stay. But look, we talk about Rodriguez there, James Ward-Prowse in the middle on Saturday. They haven't replaced Declan Rice, have they, really? I mean, that's going to be really, really difficult, isn't it? They played 3 at the back on Saturday. Obviously, they've got the new goalkeeper, Hermansen in as well. Leicester fans tell me that they got him for a very good price. So, look, it is very early. It's one defeat, sure. But I'm sure West Ham fans will acknowledge the warning signs are there.
Right, Leeds United got off to a winning start last night on their return to the Premier League. Daniel Farke, though, is after more signings. We will hear from him next. Welcome back to Transfer Talk. It was a great night for Leeds as they got their season off to a winning start after 2 seasons away from the Premier League. Despite their success, though, manager Daniel Farke has called on the club to press on in the transfer market, particularly in the forward areas.
Do you feel you perhaps need a few more, though, to add a bit more quality as we go into the season now?
Yes, like I mentioned, especially in the offense, would be good to have a few more options available. Thank God, with Dominic, we got the first one, and pretty soon he will also be involved. I'm quite sure, but. Like I mentioned before, we are ready for 1, 2, perhaps 3 good Premier League games, and I'm glad that we reward ourselves today with 3 points. But to be ready for a long Premier League season, we definitely need a bit more quality up front.
And how confident are you that you can get that quality? Because it feels as if you can get that, you could be in for a special season.
Yes, on this level you never know, because to bring players in who improve our squad is also pretty costly and expensive. But it's not just about the sum of money, but it's more like you have to spend it wisely. That's what we're also trying to do. But I know that everyone is also desperately working behind the scenes to bring a few more signings in, and for that I'm quite confident.
Well, one new signing could be AC Milan's Noah Okafor. The fee under discussion for the forward, who can play across the whole front line, is £13 million. So Leeds are being busy, aren't they, Bridgie? Is this particular signing of Okafor one that could excite the fans?
I think so. Look, he's leaving a massive club. He was on loan at Napoli last season, so he enjoyed Serie A success there. He played against Leeds in Dublin in a pre-season friendly, so he knows what Leeds all about because it was sold out over there in Dublin. So he must have thought, I'm potentially signing for a big club. And our understanding is that Leeds have got encouragement, the player wants to join. That's the beauty of it. It's not about money. He wants to join the football club. Around £13 million, is that a lot of money in Premier League football nowadays? I don't think so.
Not really.
They probably need a bit more. He isn't the biggest goal scorer in the world. He's more of a wide forward. But they haven't got Manor Solomon, who's someone who I know well at Tottenham, who was brilliant at Leeds in the Championship last season. So there's no sign yet that he'll be back at Leeds. So that'll be interesting to see if this gets done.
He's another player over 6 foot. We've made quite a bit of this already, but it is a big talking point. If you look at the signings that Leeds have made so far, they're basically all giants. There's only one of their new signings, Gudmundsson, who is under 6 foot. Very big goalkeeper they've signed as well in Lucas Perry. We talked about this earlier, didn't we, with Rob Earnshaw. Is this the way to go if you want to stay in the Premier League, just to go with size and physicality?
Well, I mean, you look at Daniel Farke himself. You know, he's probably got Premier League nightmares when he was in charge of Norwich. That was his 50th Premier League game yesterday. When Leeds finished the season last season, there was talk about Daniel Farke's future, but they've signed some players. The picture there we've got in our graphic is Dominic Calvert-Lewin. And I know this is a big if, but if he stays fit, that is Premier League experience. But look, all the promoted sides are really giving it a go. We've took Sunderland, ever so impressive. OK, tough start for Burnley away at Tottenham Hotspur. Leeds, is this the season? At least one of the promoted 3 stay up. Do you know what? I'm going to say it is.
Yeah? OK. Let that up.
No, don't.
We will. I've actually got a little bit of an update regarding Noah Okafor, which has just come in. And this is according to Sky in Italy. They are saying that Leeds United have agreed a deal with AC Milan for the signing of Noah Okafor. We will get you more detail on that when we get it. But Daniel Farke wanted more signings, and it sounds like he might be getting another one through the door. It's been a great transfer window, hasn't it? Surely one of the best we've seen in recent times. Premier League clubs have spent more than £2.36 billion on signings this summer. The record spend in a single window, incidentally, was around £2.46 billion. That was in the summer of 2023. As things stand, they are just over £100 million away from breaking that record. I'm pretty sure we're going to smash it. Clubs in the top flight have also generated more than £1.3 billion in sales. The previous record of nearly £1.5 billion was set last summer. And these are some of the big signings that have been made so far. Can you remember a transfer window like this, Michael? So many big players coming in and so many of the big clubs spending money.
It's been a really exciting one so far. But it's been a little bit different this summer because we had the mini window ahead of the Club World Cup. We've seen Manchester City add players. We've seen Chelsea add players. João Pedro and Liam Delap are already completely integrated into the Chelsea side, but Chelsea still want to add a couple of wide players as well. I'm sure Manchester City aren't done yet. So it's been a great summer so far in terms of transfers. So many stories. The Alexander Isak story isn't going away. The Wissa story isn't going away. And I'd say about 19 clubs, maybe all clubs, can turn around and say, they don't like admitting it, but we still need to do some business, which makes it an ever so exciting next few weeks.
Have we seen a bit of a return to the traditional big six, though, in this window, in that all of the traditional big six have spent big?
You're going to get me in trouble because so many clubs don't like hearing the word big six. But you look at it, as I've mentioned, Chelsea, Manchester City, they've spent already. They're still going to spend. Last season, Arne Slot, we inherited Jurgen Klopp's squad. He's won the league. That's so unfair because no one expected Liverpool to win the league. And what has he done this time? He's made a number of changes. And, of course, they still want to sign Alexander Isak. Whether they will, we don't know. You've got Tottenham looking to bring in a couple more players. You've got Arsenal potentially looking to bring a wide player. And they finally got this striker as well. We've got a new-look Manchester United. So the answer to your question is yes.
Yes. All right. Thank you. Very long-winded, but we got there in the end. Bridgie, always a pleasure, mate. Thank you very, very much. Right. Good morning. Transfers returns tomorrow at 9 a.m. Former Bournemouth midfielder Dan Gosling will be with us. Transfer talk as well, as usual, from midday. Julien Laurent and Kieran Maguire will be joining us there. And you'll get a full roundup of all the day's transfer news if you watch the Transfer Show. It's on a bit earlier today, 4 p.m. Make sure you tune in for that as well. But plenty to come before that as well. Lots more on the latest transfer news, including, of course, the latest on Eberechi. Stay with us.